Connecting EU Insight. And we organized this week a set of digital events discussing of the main topics around port and maritime, the port and maritime sectors. This morning we have the pleasure to have with us the European Coordinator for Motorway of the Sea, Professor Bodewig. Good morning, Professor Bodewig. And
good morning. Hello.
And the event, the format will be an online interview. So we have prepared a set of questions. As you know, many of you may know, Motorway of the Sea is the maritime dimension of the Trans-European Network for Transport. And Professor Bodewig has just released the new detailed implementation plan for Motorway of the Sea a couple of months ago. It is already available on the website.
Sorry, I can't hear anything.
And it is about a number of priorities that are set in the Motorway of the Sea detailed implementation plan. So the idea is to have a very short interview with a set of questions. Thanks for you to attending. We see that the number of people is coming and more and more. If you want to raise questions, you can do it. You can use the chat table functions in the GoToWebinar application. Can you hear me, Professor Bodewig?
Yes, I can understand it.
Sorry, because I had a message.
But now, yes.
Okay, I had a message that was an issue. Okay, and so we can start the interview. Thanks again, Professor Bodewig. Good morning. We have a certain question, and we see if some more questions may come from the audience. So first of all, let's go directly to the main topic that is Motorway of the Sea. Which are your main priorities in developing the concept of Motorway of the Sea?
Alexio, as you know, I got this mandate for the Motorways of the Sea coordinator 2 years ago, and my first concern was that Motorways of the Sea is not so good integrated in the overall TEN-T policy. That is something also a question of the different kind of type which the coordinator dealing with. But what I want to do is a better connection of Motorways of the Sea project to the landside corridors. We need both seaside and landside connections of ports of the last mile, this question, but also what can we do to shift perhaps from road to short sea shipping. It's also part of such a concept. Therefore, for me, it was very important to create a better connection for this. So to this purpose, I proposed in June my first detailed implementation plan, which is a work plan, which presents also my priorities for the future Motorways of the Sea. In my work plan, I introduced the notion of a sustainable, seamless, smart European maritime space. That's more than only the idea of short sea shipping. It's more integrated for all of the parts. So I try to encompass all the maritime components of TEN-T, bring it together and connect it with the landside corridors. That is the main point for this. And in my view, there is a special need. I wish to transform MoS into a truly maritime dimension of TEN-T. So my MoS work plan outlines 3 development pillars, aiming the creation of a sustainable, a seamless, and a smart European maritime space. So what you can see, sustainable is also the idea of the Green Deal, but it's more of this. It's a part of a kind to create another kind of transport flows. Seamless means we need just these seamless connectivities all over the country, which is also a question how the ports work, but also how are the connections of the port, and last but not least, the last mile discussion. And smart is digitalization. It's on the way. And therefore, that are the main points of this DIP, of that what I want to try to create in future.
And where do you see the major investment needs for motorway of the sea today, but also in the future, with a lot of things coming in terms of sustainability, Green Deal, and other European policies?
Sorry, I didn't hear your last.
Yes,
sentence.
no, it's just go carry on.
Okay. Okay, then I will start. So that is for all these three pillars, we have investment needs. I have to say, the first pillar, sustainable maritime space, that is just the same like the Green Deal priorities. And we need a higher effort of innovation, of research for perhaps for non-fossil fuel power and new engine types. There are the needs. And that is also what we're looking when we speak about decarbonization. So we need to research all kinds of alternative fuels, in particular non-fossil fuels, onshore power supplies, the innovation in propulsion systems, and that is one point from the financial side is the use of eco-incentives, to say it's good to create systems which are very sustainable, and therefore you need also an incentive. The second one is seamless, and that is so the main idea of transport flows in the entire TEN-T. So in this part, we have to appropriate hinterland and last mile connections and also invest in multimodal connectivity inside the ports. So another aspect, what I want to underline is we have to see in a more wider global view. So shipping does not end at borders, it ends in ports. And shipping is just the industry. So that is also, we have to look about the peripheral regions of Europe, the outermost regions and the islands, but also links to third countries are necessary. And we are creating subsystems. And finally, what I want to say is smart. Smart European Maritime Space needs money for digitalization. And that is also a part to realize efficient transport flows, to by a more digitalized systems. And so what we try to look is, can we digitalize the trade lanes more better, interoperable data sharing, sea traffic management, and a lot of other programs with wider aspects we have to finance as well. And let me say, in this part of investment, so now we have a situation, COVID-19, we don't know how and when the recovery will work. The transport sector is very heavily impacted by the measures to contain the pandemic. And therefore, we have to see what will happen in the ports, what will happen in the different sectors of the shipping system. And so that is also why I try to do a next detailed implementation plan to create for the next year, because we have to see what happened and we have to support the ports, the shipping industry in this pandemic crisis. And on the other hand, I think shipping will be a main factor for the recovery of.
Thanks. And going directly to, let's say, one of the main policy of the European Union in this time, the European Green Deal. How does Motorway of the Sea serve the objectives of the European Green Deal, especially talking about decarbonizing shipping and port sectors?
Yes, so I think the European Green Deal aims to make Europe to the world first climate neutral continent, and until 2050. We think that's 30 years, but it's a short time for development, and so, therefore we have to work with it. And I think that all transport modes will play a real role to this Green Deal aspect. In this second pillar, the sustainable pillar of the MOS DIP, I can only say there are all measures which serve the Green Deal's objectives of the Commission and of Europe, of the European Union. And that is what we work on it, ship propulsion, zero or low carbon fuels have to be developed. We need also a better ship efficiency. So we have to replace older vessels with newer ones, which are reduce greenhouse gases and other kinds of emissions which we have to reduce in this process. And also what we need is a conversion and retrofitting in this project. Another part are the ports. They have a key role for this enabling these chances of a Green Deal, of other kind of transport sector in the future. So what we try is to, or we have to try to create their new bunker facilities, alternative fuels, charging facilities. All that is a part of this point which we have to do to realize a good Green Deal. And short sea shipping has to play a role of transferring cargo flows from land to sea. That is what I try to support. Shipping is much more efficient in terms of tons, but also in the use of energy if they get a new quality, perhaps in engine types and in the propulsion. So I only want to say also the last pillar of my DIPs, the digitalization, the smart pillar. We can reduce resources, we can reduce emissions, all that if we have IT tools and if we can create transport flows in a more efficient, sustainable way. So all are parts of this, what we can support or how we can support the Green Deal in the transport sector, in the shipping sector.
That's very clear, thanks. As anticipated, Motorway of the Sea is the maritime dimension of the Trans-European Network for Transport. What's the way, in your opinion, to have the best integration of Motorway of the Sea within the TEN-T policy?
Yes, so the best integration is that we got more closer in contact. We try to organize discussion process, but also decision processes, which will work more closer together. And what we are sharing the same priorities. Perhaps the Green Deal is a main priority of this. With inside, if it's a horizontal or if it's a core network corridor task. So we have to work together, and therefore we have to create a better understanding for all stakeholders of the interlinkages between sea and hinterland accession of the European maritime ports. So that is, for me, the seamless idea is a main point for this. We also need a better cooperation in terms of activities and studies. You know, every work plan of a corridor get a study, and if it's possible to bring the discussion about the studies more better together, then we get better connections. That is the idea of it. A better systematical working between corridors and the horizontal priorities. And alongside the specificities of the European corridors, they have this maritime aspect because most of the corridors starting or ending with a port, and we can force here a better idea what we can do in real projects. And therefore, I organize a series of sea basin workshops together with my coordinator colleagues from the corridors which crossing these sea basins. And we already start with a workshop of the Atlantic last year. You know, the Brexit decision in the UK has is also a challenge for Ireland, and that was the start one. So we looked how all stakeholders will work together, and with the corridor coordinators and the MoS coordinator can work together to create a better situation Then we had a Western Mediterranean workshop, a Black Sea workshop. The next will be the Baltic Sea workshop in December, every time cooperating with my coordinator colleagues from the CNCs. So that is the idea, how we try to look more sharper on the sea basin.
Okay, you changed, comparing to the previous DIP, you changed a bit the structure of the consultation cooperation with the maritime stakeholders, meaning that you created, as you mentioned, this sea basin approach. Which are the advantages of sea basin approach in relation to the development of the policy and the integration of MoS within the TEN-T policy as a whole?
Yes, we got some problems because we have to look. It was unusual in the past, so we are coming closer together. That's the working condition. We have to speak about multimodality. We have also common challenges and opportunities. We can look on it. We can also make it more direct in contact, perhaps, to macro-regional strategies or the maritime strategies. But all, it's also a forum where we can discuss: is it possible to get more short-sea shipping in the special sea basins? Can we more realize the influence of maritime policy inside the following supply chain? That are the ideas which are looking around this idea, and the response of the stakeholders was very well.
That's true. And looking a bit towards the future, we are in the process of revising the TEN-T policy, what is currently Regulation 1315. And how can we ensure that MoS, as the maritime dimension of the TEN-T, could be very well reflected in the new TEN-T policy, in the new TEN-T revision?
Yes, we have now a situation that we have a really good opportunity to support the importance of the maritime dimension inside this TEN-T regulation. As you know, the TEN-T evaluation is about finalized at the end of the year, so we will hear the results, and then at the same time the Commission will start an impact assessment of presenting a legislative proposal for new TEN-T guidelines. I think that will be by September 21 next year. So a revision will certainly put the chance to enhance the quality of the route TEN-T, and also to achieve it with other parts which we can support the Green Deal, the European Green Deal. So if we speak about TEN-T, so we speak also of we have to speak about the role to play in terms of decarbonization of transport, and also a shift from road to short sea shipping. Both we have to think together. And as European coordinator, I initiated a debate on how the maritime dimension shall be perhaps reshaped or shaped in the next TEN-T guidelines. For us, it's a chance for the maritime sector in Europe also to come in place, to show what happened, where they can support just the goals of the European policy. And we also look on this, that we have to see what can we do to be an integral part of the entire supply chain. And that is also the third countries, whereas spoken before, but also seabound and hinterland connections for ports. And therefore, also in this idea, we can speak about more flexibility of the eligibility criteria in future. That's also for us a chance to work. Today, we have not too much chances of the cooperation with third countries and also the outermost region of Europe. So I think that is also a chance to speak about and to find good, flexible solution for this.
Okay, thanks. I go now to a little bit more personal question. You are at the end of the second year of your mandate as a European coordinator for Motorway of the Sea, coming from the experience to be the coordinator of a corridor. So how do you sense the, let me say, the maritime community? And which are the main differences from the previous role you had as core network corridor coordinator?
Yeah, so it's a different perspective. The coordinators of a landside corridor, they are looking on this corridor, looking where are the main projects, where are the missing links, how can we work on it. And I was also the first 4 years coordinator of the Baltic Adriatic corridor, and I know how to work. And I think that's very good for this position as coordinator for Motorways of the Sea, because I know this perspective, and I also know what can we do. As coordinator on the Baltic Adriatic corridor, I invited Brian Simpson. He was a former coordinator of the Motorways of the Sea. I every time say he's the first victim of the Brexit because he was very engaged in this field. But so I invited him, and then we speak about what do we need in the port, multimodality. What have we do on the logistic chain, on the entire logistic chain, and so on. And I will give you a short example for why differences are, or why difference are in the perspectives. So we have a very interesting project that is a short-sea shipping line, a new one created from Civitavecchio to Barcelona, with a lot of weekly transports, and it works very well. This reduced nearly some 1,000 kilometers of road transport if it's work and if it has financial good conditions. So it works, what we can see, but this is an alternative to 3 corridor paths, and therefore, so we have this overarching thinking. That is what we have to force a little bit more. All my colleagues makes very fantastic work, I have to say. But also, if it's possible to open the view, then it's also helpful for this kind of part, which I want to get a more common thinking. That is one part, and therefore, on the other hand, I can say the stakeholders, the maritime scene in Europe is very active, very creative. They are fighting for their interests. That is what they have to do, but also this thinking, where are problems and are there opportunities to reduce these problems together? And that is what I very enjoy when we have our meetings or different meetings with stakeholders, the ports, shipping lines, the ship owners, and so on, because that is this kind of thinking. That is what is helpful, and it's also kind of global thinking, because shipping is global, and therefore I enjoy it. And it's for me every time there are meetings where I get very good impulses, and I can promise I will not forget them. It's where we are working with. So perhaps personal situation.
Thank you very much for this personal view. Just to wrap up before looking to questions coming from the audience, to sum up, three keywords to define for the future of the European maritime space.
That's really easy, because they are the pillars of the working plan. It's sustainability. We need it. It is seamless. We have to create such transport flows in Europe. That is a part of becoming Europe, and smart. Yes, that is what we have to do. That one word to the pandemic. In this pandemic, we also see that digitalization is more and more important, and that is also helpful for the working plan. So that are the three keywords: sustainable, seamless, smart. And I hope that we can get it and we will align with it. And that is my wish for the future.
Quite clear, perfect on time. We have a couple of minutes still for questions. We got one that is very interesting and of course very on the point. Motorway of the Sea is supporting the overall connection of the maritime transport with ports, hinterland, and the main leg of it is the shipping part. Okay, the maritime connection between ports. We know that in the last call, and the vessel component was not an eligible one, and of course, I mean the shipping industry is looking for support also to renewing fleets and decarbonizing in a way. You did a great job already in the DIP to move also and to support the sector as a whole, not only look into typical SEP projects, but also to other funding schemes. So which are the options and what is in the plan that is supporting the shipping sector itself to receive attention, let me say?
Mm-hmm. So the last call was a call which was just very oriented to the sustainable measures inside the ports. But we have also other questions, that what we can do with vessels and so on. And therefore we have also a blending facility, which is not working as a call, it's a permanent call. And that is the kind, how can we private capital support with financial support over our instruments. That is, I think, a good idea. So because then we have to look what is the main goals and which are the goals we can perhaps realize organizing by cooperation. And as you know, Carlos Secchi, he was also a guest in this webinars. So we have also written an action plan for the EU, and therefore we also try to find cooperation because we know there are huge goals to 2030, but also to 2050. So we need money, and we need also to look about financial instruments which can work in such a context.
We got another question in the meantime, and it is about a very interesting point that is, as you know quite well, let's say understood and in a way hoped by the stakeholders. The connection with third countries. Okay, so which kind of let's say ideas and which kind of support can you envisage for the connection with third countries, taking into account that there is this specificity of the maritime dimension, that the maritime dimension, the maritime leg itself is a cross-border element of the network, in this case a cross-border element towards non-European countries. What's your view in this respect?
So you know that the eligibility in CEF financing is very close to very hard criteria, and that is if we're thinking there could be the idea that perhaps from Algeria the transport goes not by road to Morocco, then from Morocco to Spain, and then around and then come to Roma. Therefore, we need such short sea shipping transport, perhaps from Tunis, from Algiers, from Morocco, going directly to European ports. So then we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We can also make it more efficiency. And what I also hope is with eco bonus or other kind of incentive, we can make it also in the market more acceptable. And that is we have also to thank. Therefore, we need but more criteria, more flexible eligibility to create such projects. But when I see Cyprus with Israel in the food sector, cooling the food on the ships and so on, I think there are a lot of good ideas. And I see that was one discussion in the Western Mediterranean Sea Basin meeting, that there were a lot of participants which have some good ideas. And now we try to find solution for this, and a little bit more flexibility would be helpful.
Thanks a lot. Again, we are at the end. I think it was a half an hour perfect interview with a lot of different topics and issues touched. So really, Professor Bodewig, thank you very much for your availability. The registration will be then distributed to be reviewed, and whenever the stakeholders would like to look at. So thanks again for your participation. Thanks to the attendees. Thanks to the team, and specifically Gloria and Marika, that supported me in this interview. We look forward to seeing you again in the regional sea basin meetings that we are organizing at this stage remotely, and we hope to see you physically sooner or later, hopefully in the next Motorway of the Sea Forum in Brussels in spring. Let's hope for that. We are in a very critical situation, but we really hope for that. So thanks again. Have a good day, and stay tuned to Connecting EU Insights with the next interviews that are coming. Specifically this afternoon, we have another interesting one about wind propulsion in maritime transport. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, Professor Bodewig. Bye-bye.